Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room, and I am solo dolo in here with two awesome guests, one returning, one new guest. We've got Chase coming back with us on the Dagger side of the house, and new guest is Raul. So appreciate both of you guys joining us. Raul, since you haven't been on here, why don't you give us a little bit of background, introduce yourself, and then we'll move on to Chase for a refresher. And then we're going to dive right into some Dagger and maybe some other stuff too. Who knows? Might get crazy with it.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for having us. Yeah, I'm Raul Aponte. I prior service Marine Corps. I'm a National Guard guy over at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And civilian side, I'm a cop by trade. Done just about everything you could as a civilian cop at this point in my career. And I'm out here at the 371st teaching and helping rewrite the curriculum for the school.
Nice.
For the Dagger school, sorry.
Yeah, got to clarify that. How about you, Chase?
Thanks for having us again. My name's Chase. I'm at the 27th Dagger section. I've been there for about 3 years. I've got 2 deployments under my belt. We just got actually off the Surtex with the 2-2 guys, so bummer that Aaron's not here. Looking forward to it, and thanks for having us back.
Yeah, man. Aaron told me that you guys were there at the Surtex together. For those that don't know, a Surtex is a certification exercise. It's how you validate and certify that a unit or a whatever, we'll just call it a unit, is ready to deploy. So you have all this train up, then you basically have an exercise to show that, hey, you're ready. And if there's any alibis, you can address it and make sure that you train to it. But yeah, Aaron was telling me that you guys were out there. That it was actually, you guys were working quite a bit together from what I understand.
Yeah. He got there a couple days after it kicked off. Yeah. And linked up with him right away, just say what's up, and moved right into the validation part of it. So it was a good time. Definitely a good time. Yeah,
man. That's awesome. Well, you, so we've never met before. So that, like, I wasn't tracking that you were a prior Marine. What did you do in the Marines? And then what brought you from the Marines, into the Air Force?
So I was a field artillery guy. Just, a gun rock, cannon cocker, that old job. And, for the longest time, I wanted to call for fire. I tried to become a forward observer for a little bit, and that got derailed. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went into law enforcement, kind of missed the military. So I joined the National Guard originally to be a TAC P. That didn't work out, mainly because I was completely unprepared. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I had no idea that JTACs in the Air Force were regarded in so highly, and I had no idea I was getting myself into an indoc. So when I checked into my TAC P Dagger unit, I went to medical. They drew blood. They told me not to eat, and then when I was done with all that, it was a PT test to an unknown distance rock, and I completed.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was rough. I completed all of that. But then, I was just like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I was mainly what it came down to. I wasn't mentally in the right state of mind. If I went through it now, I would know what I'm getting myself into. So I don't think I would have. I think I would do differently. But I ended up dropping out of the process, and I got lucky to get put in a security forces squadron that had the Dagger program.
Yeah, boy, you were really set up for success there.
Yeah, well, I should have done my research.
Not by your own meaning. I mean, like, just, hey, you're going to fast, you're going to draw some blood, and then better get it on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that I completed everything. But like after it was all said and done, it was that plus, I had, senior airmen, kind of like talking down at me because it was an in-doc process. But again, I wasn't prepared, and my mentality fresh out of the Marines, I'm like, who the heck are you talking to like that? I'm a sergeant of Marines. What is going on here? But yeah, so that's basically what happened. I got no excuses. I should have done my research.
Did you end up losing a pay grade, like a rank coming over? Because that happens sometimes.
It happens. It typically happens for E6 and above, though. I came over as an E5, so it wasn't that big a deal.
Okay. Oh, well, that's good. At least you got to keep your pay.
Mm-hmm.
So both of you guys are instructors at the schoolhouse, and I'm understanding that. No.
Nope. I've never been an instructor at the schoolhouse. Raul and I went through school together back in 2019. I've been at Cannon the entirety of my Dagger stint up to this point. Granted, I've gotten out for exercises, TDYs, and deployments, but yeah, I've been old Clovis raised from the start. So
okay, I must have misheard that then. So based off of that and the fact, like you said, that you're going TDY all the time, you're deploying, you've got hitting exercises and stuff, and those kind of awesome things. And you just got off of a Certex exercise with, the 2-2 STS. How often are you going out and doing those kind of exercises, and what are you tasked to do during those exercises?
So it used to be busier. I'm not gonna lie, it used to be busier. We have usually at least one, if not two, STS Certexes roll through Cannon in a year, because Cannon's just a great place to induce misery like deployment. They keep saying there's no similar place to Africa than Cannon. I'm starting to see it more and more. Those happen about twice a year. We've had special forces groups roll through in the past, and some NSW teams and some RSOC guys roll through too. We've supported them as we can. And when we're able to, but usually with a Certex picture, that looks like us either filling the partner force, and they ask for like DLOs or desired learning objectives, right? So we will bring over our mission essential task list that was talked about in the last podcast with Lance and Jordan. We bring that list over, and we're like, well, as Dagger is playing your partner force, we would like to learn our own job, how you guys would do it. And it gives us another breadth of experience, another way of doing things that maybe we didn't think through the process of, hey, for this met or for this task, we can do it this way instead of this way. So really opening up our experience capabilities. But then at the same time, it's also educating that operator or that force on what Dagger does and how we can uplift that STS or that MARSOC unit or whoever. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Sorry.
Go for it, Raul.
No, I was going to say, and across the Dagger enterprises, it happens pretty often. I know the guys from the first, they do a lot of training with their EOD, with 7th Group. I know the guys at the 183rd, where I come from, they're constantly doing training with the local TAC-P unit that's out there. The guys at Mildenhall they work very closely with the STS over there, and with whatever local host nation that's over there. So across the Dagger enterprise, we do these kind of things a lot.
From what I've been told, the Kadena guys have been rocking and rolling with First Group Alpha, the detachment out there in Okinawa, and the MARSOC guys, and even some of the STS cats out there. So, everyone's pretty busy across the board when it comes to doing validating exercises or certifying exercises or just joint exercises in general. So that's the main way we earn our employment, I should say, I guess, educating and employment. So.
No, and you're right. And your kind of your first comment about, hey, it used to be busier than it is. That's just kind of the whole DOD is facing that now. Some people, it has, the ops tempo has dwindled. Some it's just maintained. But it definitely, for the most part, it hasn't increased. Not as of yet anyway, but that's kind of the ebb and flow of the way things go. And that's something that the Air Force and all the services really are kind of dealing with right now and trying to figure out. So it's to be expected, really.
Yeah.
But the good thing is you guys are everywhere for the most part, at least in the security forces world. You guys are everywhere. Are Daggers at every single base? And I'll throw that question to, I don't know. I'll throw it to Chase right now.
Yeah, no. So there's the 6 locations. We have the reserve unit out of Duke Field. We have the guard unit out of Harrisburg, PA. We have the 1st out of Herbie, the 27th out of Cannon, the 352nd out of Mildenhall, and the 353rd out of Kadena. Now we're starting to get more. There's only 365 of us since 2007. Let's start with that there too. So we're a very small number when it comes to Security Forces Enterprise over the last 15 years. But you're starting to see more Daggers step away from the Dagger program and go to places like Camp Guernsey to be instructors up in the nuclear world, or McGuire to be Raven instructors, or CRG instructors out there. We've got guys at Guam, down at the tech school for security forces in San Antonio. So we're starting to take our Dagger experience. I think it's always been this way, but I'm seeing it more now than ever. Because when I came through tech school and all my upgrade training, I didn't know what a Dagger was until my first supervisor went Dagger. So we're now looking at it from the outside into the security forces world, I'm seeing a lot more Daggers spread out across the training areas, the big major training areas for security forces, to really help kind of kill that ambiguity that's behind the Dagger name, because we're not special operations operators. We are special operations support at the end of the day. We're here to cater to the customer across AFSOC and SOCOM. And those guys are out there doing good work at their respective bases now, educating security forces by the masses on what it is Dagger is capable of doing and what we actually do in real time. So,
okay. And that takes me to another question then is, so security forces on and I mean this no slight to anybody that's out there in security forces, but like at a basic level, your normal security forces person, they're already receiving law enforcement training, LEO type stuff, weapons manipulation, rifle, pistol, all the law enforcement codes and stuff like that. But Raul, since you're at the Dagger schoolhouse, like what are you guys teaching that is different or maybe more advanced that then helps transition that normal security forces person, and I'm just saying normal security force person because I don't know the best way to articulate it, but into a Dagger?
So I feel like to start. So currently there is some changes with the security forces enterprise at the schoolhouse where they're trying to focus more from law enforcement to air-based defense. So we don't know yet what that's going to look like for us, right? But yeah, there are some learning curves with students when they come through Dagger, because we're not a law enforcement entity whatsoever. We're an expeditionary contingency response depending on what's going on, right? So some of the learning curves really come from, whether that's in A1C, because we typically don't get A1Cs, but we have been getting them as of late. We require those individuals to operate at the same level as a tech sergeant. So whether that's, putting up an op order together or talking to a group of people and briefing them. That's a huge learning curve for us. And yeah, the weapons manipulation at the security forces schoolhouse is very basic. So when they come to us, we spend a whole week with the student, taking them from ground level basics, weapon manipulation to, moving and shooting at a level that's on par with any tech sergeant that's been doing security forces for a big amount of years. But yeah, mission planning is huge. Small unit tactics is another one that, these guys just don't quite have it. We do teach a portion of close quarter battles is very basic. But anybody that holds a gun should be able to manipulate that gun around a structure. Otherwise, what good are you?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
So yeah, there's a lot of learning curves. Like I said, a lot of the stuff they've learned already. We're just taking it to a whole next level.
Right, and that's all it is. I'm glad you said that, because it's not that they're already receiving a certain level of training. It's just, it's a really good baseline to what they're coming to you with. It's just you guys are taking it. We're just cranking it up a couple volume notches rather. Okay, so. And I can't remember who said it. Somebody said Raven.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was Chase. Now, so this is all this is education for me, which I'm all about. So please tell me, actually, are either one of you Raven? Is it a qualification or? Okay, it's not a qualification.
It's
its own separate job.
I don't have it, and I don't believe Raul has it either. So
I do not. So it used to be for Daggers when the program first got started. Ravens cover flight deck denial, right, during their curriculum. That was something that was highlighted that was necessary for us as well. So we used to send our students to Raven first, and then Dagger. And I'm talking about, when I say used to, I mean like through the inception of the course, like 2007. Since then, we've discovered that Ravens and Daggers, we just conduct business differently. We go to different places.
Mhm.
So it wasn't, we weren't getting much of a benefit out of it, right? So we decided to move away from that program completely as part of our pipeline, and we would just teach our students flight deck denial in the way that we would do it downrange.
Okay. Can you, I'm going to pop this from the chase. Can you elaborate on flight deck denial?
So,
Because I know where you're coming from, having, but like that's a very, that verbiage is kind of very nebulous for anybody that's not tracking what flight deck denial would be.
yeah, so of course, yeah, the Raven program does flight deck denial extremely well, right? But they're also working on platform. They have the 130 platform in common with us in the Dagger world, but they also have the C-17 and C-5 platforms. So they're working with massive aircraft compared to a 132. So they usually get 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 people or 5 Ravens per aircraft, where I've been in situations deployed where it's just me doing flight deck denial. Yeah. It was, it was what it is, and you just have to kind of roll with those punches and be flexible and trust the process that the Dagger program had put you through and all that training. And I'm not saying it's a very hard task, but your self-confidence has to be through the roof because it's you versus upwards of 140 people sometimes. For example, literally a year ago with Kabul, right? We had 3 Daggers in Kabul, and the 3 of us, we were solely responsible for that 130's aircrew safety transitioning back from Kabul to Qatar. And we had, upwards of 90, 120, even 140 people on a tube at a time. And these were all, Afghans and AMSITs that were being pulled. So you like sitting there as the barrier between, and I'm sure you've definitely been on a 130 before. You know that looking up to the cockpit, that's an open door. It's an open door to a stairwell to another open door. And you have to be confident in your skills and your ability to stand your ground, essentially, and deny the flight deck to the people who are just, essentially cargo in layman's terms, I guess. So you are that barrier, that final line of defense for the safety of the air operators at that point in time. So, and that's where the big difference was with Raul was saying with, no disrespect whatsoever with the Raven program. What they do it extremely well. But we have a different mission set where we don't always have a 5-man Raven team or 5-man Dagger team even for a single aircraft. I think the most Daggers I had for a 130 was 3 people. And that was the first night we flew into Kabul just to get essay on what was going on. It was me and my 2 wingmen. And I look over at the C-17 next to us, thinking at the time it was an American one. It ended up being an Irish C-17. They had 12 versions of their Raven or Dagger program dudes around their C-17, all met 249s. So like every country has a flyaway security team from my experience so far. But like everyone does a little bit different, and it's just another, notch in our belt with the Dagger program and how we do things a little different than the Raven program, which is probably the most closely aligned to us when it comes to that mission set. So
they're over there with 12 dudes and you guys are over there with 3 just drowning.
Yeah. That was pretty funny.
I wasn't tracking that you were in HKIA during the evac.
Yeah. It was a crazy time, that's for sure. We were there with the 2-3 STS guys. They were the points of contact we worked with pretty closely during that whole situation. So
yeah, man, that's awesome. That was not an ideal situation, if you will, to say lightly. So you guys, your team, and then obviously the rest of everybody that was out there, both ST, Army, the folks that were out there were, man, doing some really, really good work.
It was a full plate, one bite at a time.
Nice. Well, Raul, deployment wise, you didn't bring up any deployments earlier, and I can appreciate that. I understand. what has been your experience with deployments
So
on the Air Force side of the house?
Yeah, so I've been to Burkina Faso in Africa, mainly conducting tactical security missions for air crew, going from the team houses to the airfield, and doing assessments around the city to, excuse me, to just validate places that are good and safe for Americans to eat or whatever. We were there during the height of COVID, so a lot of movement was restricted for the air crew. And then from BF, we went to Djibouti, and we were doing a lot of the same, just a different environment, a lot different environment. And actually, Chase's team relieved me in Djibouti, so that was a really cool reunion.
Well, so you guys, that's interesting because you said 375 of you. Is that right?
Yeah,
65, something around there. Yeah.
That is a lot smaller than I expected.
Yeah.
So at the schoolhouse then, how many are you guys putting through per class?
So we're supposed to be putting in 40 through a year, but because of just lack of information that's out there for people to be educated about the program and put in for it, we don't fill 40 seats a year, right? We typically, as of late, we've been filling at the most maybe 30. And then we also have it's a guesstimate, but about 30% attrition rate. So last year, I think we graduated 26 out of those 40. So last
year, as in so how many classes per year do you put through?
So right now we're doing four classes a year, 9 weeks of training. For FY23, there's a lot of talks going on between 371st leadership and A4 leadership about doing 2 classes a year, 11-week course, and putting through 50 students.
Okay. Would that be okay? So is that an increase in weapons, or what would be the increase if you're going from 9 to 11 weeks?
So we would focus, again, this will allow us to give the students more reps in mission planning. With 25, essentially we'll get 25 students. So 25 students means we need more time on each subject to give the students reps.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Also with the new DoD guidance on rapidly deployable units, they need to have, TCCC combat lifesaver, and per their curriculum, that's a 40-hour course, so we need to add an additional week just for TCCC.
Yeah. So do you think it's a messaging issue of getting the message out that obviously you need daggers, but is it a messaging in terms of hey, come join us, these are the things that we do? Or is it are you finding that the recruitment pool just isn't there due to whatever, just lack of interest or whatever it is?
I don't think it's lack of interest. I mean, sorry, Chase, you can go in a second. I don't think it's lack of interest. I mean, if you can go to any tech school, right? And guys coming out of tech school, they're super motivated. They want to do all the high speed stuff, whatever they can. I think it has a lot to do with just really no information out there, and some misinformation too. You have guys that maybe didn't get the opportunity to do certain things, and they're a little salty about it, so they won't speak positively about the program, and in turn, that kind of mentality just transitions over to the next troop. But yeah, I know, recently that's been improving. I know the guys at that work our Instagram page, they do a really good job promoting the program. So yeah, it's been improving. It could definitely be better though.
Yeah, and to caveat off that, there's also been this, it's not so much anything we can control or even the headquarters can really control. It's the overall manning at the 1st and the 27 specifically. They're above 90%. The Security Forces Squadron manning is above 90%. So therefore, they can't hire through AMS or MyVector, My Talent Marketplace. We can't put ads out for those 2 squadrons to fill the lack of manning at those 2 sections, because technically on paper, it's a 90% manned squadron. They're not hurting for people. but the section could have 10 or 12 or 13 people of the 25 allotted billets. So that forces our hand into doing in-house tryouts through that same security forces squadron, which isn't a bad thing because there's a lot of talent hidden in security forces squadrons, and it gives you an opportunity to like kind of take some of these new troops, like the young A1Cs or senior airmen coming in, and be like, hey, let's do this. Like let me teach you what we do, and then you give us your all, and we'll get you squared away from there, kind of thing. So with that though, but that barrel is only so deep. Eventually, you're going to start scraping the bottom of the barrel, and you could go your first tryout for an in-house for all the in-house hires. So the very, very first one could have 25 people show up for it, and 5 of them get selected. And then moving forward from that one, the very last in-house tryout could have 2 dudes that show up for it because everybody else has either failed it before or they got hurt or whatever the situation might have been. They just realized this isn't for me, and now you're catering that in-house tryout to just 1 or 2 people, and not even getting a guarantee that either one of those individuals will pass. And it's a very basic assessment that we hold at the 2-7. It's your PT test first thing in the morning, above 90%, and then you get 30 minutes off, and you hit a ruck, 6 miles, sub 90 minutes at a 35 pounds dry. So, those are the 2 big ones. In the past, when we have 5, 6, 10 people show up for a tryout, we've been able to do like, hey, what's your shooting look like? What's your cognitive thinking ability and your leadership capabilities? And we'll put you in leadership games where you are the only person allowed to talk and your team has to listen, and then or vice versa. You're the follower and your leader talks through that exercise. We do a stress fire, pretty basic stuff. You run about 100 meters, you drag a dummy, and then once the dummy gets dragged through the shoot house, the casualty dummy, they move that casualty dummy to another point, a quick teachable scenario, carry some ammo cans, and then they're doing overhead arm claps while they wait for the cadre to give the instruction for the stress fire, essentially. So very basics for a tryout, but like I said, you go from a full pot to an empty pot pretty quick, especially in just the course of a single year. So,
yeah, and that's just like an internal assessment with the folks that you have in the unit. So if somebody as motivated as they are, and then all of a sudden get put in a situation like that where, hey, because I tell you what, I'm assuming you guys are using like the Hurt and Herman 250 pounds of dead weight.
Somewhere in there, about $150 at the least. We brought them from the sophomore program. It's whatever they bring us for the day.
We call them Heavy Harvey.
Heavy Harvey. Yeah, we call them Hurt and Herman. Yeah, whatever. But that dead weight, that is very, very real, and it is a pain in the ass.
It's a very basic. It's a very basic stress fire. You go to any SWAT school or SRT school in security forces, you're going to encounter something very similar. So it's not even just Dagger specific. It's specific at this point. It's just, hey, this is your first taste of reality outside of normal security forces. You want to go SRT, you want to go Dagger, you want to go Raven. Like, you're going to encounter these kinds of stresses. It's just a very basic. But like I said, that pot gets super thin very fast. So.
And how often are you guys doing the internal assessments?
It depends on how often the courses are going between COVID and just scheduling and the coming down from headquarters. I'm like, hey, there's going to be a class for this. In this time period, you have a week or 2 or 3 to hire in-house. And unfortunately, because of the manning issues, and they're not issues, right? Everyone's above 90%. So it's just because of the above 90% manning. Yeah. Sometimes that word comes down pretty late on, like, we're skirting that line. Yep, still above 90. Hire somebody, you know what I mean, from the inside. So it's kind of mission dependent or situation dependent. So.
All right, Raul, what kind of trends are you guys seeing, both good and bad, at the schoolhouse from folks that are showing up?
Well, that's kind of tough to answer. Trends, mainly because our classes are so small, and you get people from all walks of life, so you really never know what you're gonna get. Yeah, sometimes we get really surprised by a class. Actually, yeah, we had a class of all senior airmen and A1Cs, and to this day, they're probably one of my favorite classes. Right, a lot of those guys,
That's awesome.
a lot of those guys didn't have a lot of experience with anything. And that was good and bad. I mean, we had to really get into the weeds with certain things and really like make sure that they understood it. But when they understood it, they moved and they were like sponges. So that was really good. On the other side, we've had guys where there was a lot of experience in the room, and those were, with all that experience, they underperform in certain ways because they were a full glass already. That you couldn't teach them anymore. But once you humble them and you really brought them down to, hey, you don't know as much as you think you know. We started seeing that that they were really getting it together. But as far as trends go, yeah, I mean, I can't say that I've seen any trend.
Yeah. Well, your schoolhouse is no different than any other schoolhouse. If you get brand new folks, usually they're a clean slate, and you're not trying to fix any kind of, weapons malfunctions or shooting bad techniques or anything like that. You're just got a clean slate. You just train them how they need to be trained and they're good to go. Whereas if you take old people like myself, we're very stuck in our ways, allegedly. And then, but inherently we've got bad habits that you got to try and break. And so, we tend to buck the system a little bit. But I do want to ask, like, in terms of preparation, because our demographic for our audience is typically your 15 to 25-year-olds ish, maybe up to 30, that are wanting to come in, and they see you two and they get motivated by the stuff that you guys are out there doing. Chase, they hear your Kaya story. Raul, they know that you're running around freaking Africa doing all kinds of good stuff. So, like, how can they best prepare? And Raul, I'm going to kick this one off to you just because you're at the schoolhouse. And I know you're not at you're at the Dagger schoolhouse, not the security forces schoolhouse. So I can appreciate that. But, like, what can they do to best prepare to make sure that they're successful at the Dagger schoolhouse?
Yeah. So I'll start by saying this, right? If you are the type of person that's not in the military, right, and you wanna join security forces specifically to be a Dagger, first I want to say good luck, right? There's 300 and something of us out of a 40,000 plus career field. That means there's less than 1% of the career field is Dagger, right? On top of that, you need to get lucky enough to get sent to a unit that has a Dagger section, or while you're in your security forces career, you need to get lucky enough that an AMS ad pops up for Dagger. So, yeah, good luck. If you have the mentality that you want to do Dagger, my opinion, dude, you sound like a hard charger. You sound like a motivated person. Go all the way. Go STS. Go Special Forces. Don't invest. Don't come into security force thinking that you're going to do Dagger. That's number one. Number two, this is really mainly for the guys that are already in the military, already in security forces. They tried all these other things and now they're in security forces and they want to make the best of it, right? That's where Dagger comes in. So for those guys, I would say, read books, be educated. I would say ruck a lot, and I would say shoot. Invest in yourself, right? So what we're seeing there is some trends. So what we're seeing at the schoolhouse, right?
I knew there was.
if you can't shoot at an expert or close to expert, you're gonna have a rough time during our qual. Our qual, we don't allow for any misses, and that's where most of our attrition comes from, right? If you're not running your PT test at above a 90 percentile, it's going to be rough for you keeping up with the rest of the class or keeping up with our PT days. If you can't ruck, 6 miles in 90 minutes, you're going to have a hard time keeping up coming in here. You shouldn't come in here just making those minimum standards. You come in here, our standard should be your minimum, right? You should be exceeding that when you come in here so you can blow the program completely out of the water.
Chase, you got anything to add to that?
I think Raul hit it right on the head. I mean, what we look at or what me personally and the guys that I work with at the 2-7, what we look at for candidates coming from the squadron over to our in-house assessments is the same thing. Guys that are hard chargers, motivated, they're not going to let, something minute interfere on or like screw up the entire process of what they want. Like I would like to see somebody come into the section who is always thinking 4 steps ahead, somebody that is always looking for additional work to better the teams at the end of the day. And somebody that understands our role, right? We have a circle that we have to live in, and we're not going outside of that circle and infringing on other people's capabilities or abilities. We're not combat controllers. I should be calling in airstrikes or even asking to go to SOTAC, right? Like my job is to enable you guys to do that job even better. And so like those guys that know their left and right limits and are able to execute at 110%. So.
Oh, awesome. And one of the ways you can make sure that you're successful at being a Dagger or really any kind of job that you have to be physically active is to make sure you're hydrated. So check out Hoist. You guys like that, huh? I'm going right into ad reads. Don't worry, I'll follow it up. But we got people we got to support because they support us. So make sure you guys check out Hoist. It's IV level hydration. They got great flavors. No kidding. If you guys haven't tried it, like, dude, these ready to drinks are awesome.
I actually did a shooting competition, and they gave us Hoist in our gift bags, and I put it in my cooler, and it was pretty good.
Dude, yeah. This one's the strawberry lemonade. Big fan of this flavor, and then the peach mango. But then they also have the little hydration packets that you can just throw into water bottles that makes it super easy. So go check out drinkhoist.com. Use the promo code ONESREADY. And then if you do need a pick-me-up, though, if you guys aren't tracking, I love my Trench Coffee. So Trench Coffee Company out here in Vegas. I don't know if you guys have ever met Jeff Mason. He's a combat controller, but he actually owns the company. So he's still active serving out here at Nellis. And then, just loves coffee so much that he decided to start up a coffee company and brew it. And it's my go-to. So he also has a promo code ONESREADY on his site. So go check him out. So Raul, you kind of, you dove into a little bit, and I think I understand it, but I want to make sure that I'm clear on it, because you guys, if you're not the largest AFSC, you're at least the second largest AFSC within the Air Force, and you got a lot of people, and 365, 375 of you guys. Do you have to be like, if I'm at a security forces unit, do I have to be at a base or at a unit that has a Dagger element to it? Or do I, no kidding, have to wait for an AMS ad and then get lucky enough to do that?
Yeah. So if you're at a unit that has a Dagger section, your odds are better. They've definitely improved, because those guys run assessments, bi-monthly or whatever. But if you're not at those security forces squadrons, you have to wait for an AMS ad.
So do you guys do traveling road shows where you'll go out, whether it's from the schoolhouse or whether it's from the operational unit, because recruiting is an issue, right? You said that you're not filling up your classes of 40 people. Guess what? Neither are we, and I would say that is pretty common across the board. So, that's one of the reasons why the Dagger Instagram page is so popular. That's why it exists, right? That's why podcasts that's why our podcast and several other podcasts exist to help get information out there, to help recruiting and stuff like that. So, what are you guys doing to help bolster those kind of recruitment numbers? And I'm going to throw that to either one of you, just because.
If I can, real quick, Raul, I'm just going to say that I had the opportunity to go down to San Antonio and play OPFOR for some tech schoolers here last month. So that was a really unique opportunity. I think the program should take advantage of more often. San Antonio is pretty much dead center between Herbie and Cannon. So to bring those, a team over bi-monthly or every other month or whatever it is, just to play out for, and then speak to the students at Bolus after the day's over, like, Q&A or sergeant's time, whatever you want to call it, right? I think that'd be a really great opportunity to really expand recruitment from the lowest level. And then, so like, I got to have a conversation with this team and really educate alongside the cadre that is their instructors. So like, those guys that are prior, tactical response force out of the nuclear world, those guys that are prior Ravens. So like, there's all this experience there to talk about their specific previous responsibilities, but there isn't, like you said, there isn't that Dagger person because we're so small. And that 365 or 70 people that we have in the program is from 2007 to today. So like currently, and yeah, that changes things a little bit. So currently within the section, we're looking at maybe 100 active duty Daggers, maybe.
Closer to 80, but
yeah. So you've got 25 allotted at both CONA sections, somewhere between like 12 and 15 allotted at the OCONA sections. The reserve and guard section, their manning is going up right now. From what I've been told, is that they're trying to go from like a 15. Raul, you can probably correct me on this one, being out of Harrisburg, but they have like 15 or 20 billets allotted. They're trying to push for 25. So you're looking at very small numbers actively performing Dagger responsibilities within the Air Force. Now, granted, you have dudes that are prior Dagger, all over, guys at, Hickam or the Minot or, the CRGs out of Moody or not Moody, McGuire, Travis, or Guam or Ramstein. So, like, we have guys spread out, and that is the best way we can recruit at the moment, is having the dudes that did the Dagger gig go back to the career field and fill respective roles within the career field and talk intelligently, effectively, and effectively recruit from their respective squadrons that they're at. So,
Raul, do you have anything to add to that? I couldn't see. It looked like
he hit everything right on the nail.
Okay, so then Chase, since you're at an operational unit, like, what's the ops tempo look like then? If there's, we're talking 370 of you from 2007 to now, like, what are we looking at? Like, are you guys just constantly on the road?
So with General Slipe's new initiative on the mission support team, Dagger is heavily supporting the mission support teams. So out of the 15 people we have at Cannon right now, 15 Daggers, 10 of them are allotted to the MSTs. So there's two teams. There's Team 2, Iteration 2, Team 2, and Iteration 3 going on right now, Team 3. And each one of those teams have a 5-man Dagger team attached to them, and I think it's pretty similar at Herbie right now. And then myself and 4 other individuals are not set aside for the MST. We're still fulfilling the original Dagger mission with hey, you get a phone call at 2 a.m. You got 2 hours to report to the hot gates and get on at 1:30 from there. So we still have that responsibility to uphold the no notice tasker, which is a huge piece of the Dagger mission set, especially being attached at a base that has the flying assets supporting same. So that call could come literally right now, and I have to leave the podcast, and it's the same thing across the board for any of the sections. So that's what we're looking at right now. So our tempo is, you're either at the MST's tempo, which is they're doing validation exercise after validation exercise for proof of concept. They're going TDY because it's that whole Airmen concept. So they're really building all of the airmen at those MSTs up to instill the warrior mindset, to get their shooting capabilities up, their tactical headspace up, because no one knows where that concept is going to go in the future, right? For like legitimate solidified employment. So they're trying to be as ready for any COA as possible at this point. And the Daggers are helping drive that over there. So that's where their tempo is at. And then home station tempo, right? We just did the validation exercise with the 2-2, the Surtex exercise with the 2-2. So we feel any exercise that rolls across our the AOS, or the Air Operations Squadron, at Cannon, that Dagger can fill a support entity to, 1, educate and promote the program, and 2, get employment out of. We do whatever we can to stay as busy as possible.
Yeah,
for sure. And I appreciate. Oh, go ahead,
No, I
Raul.
was going to say, and from a guard standpoint, our winter months up in Pennsylvania, we're typically doing all of our administrative stuff. But once summer hits, it's rough. It's like having a second job because we're constantly all summer going on TDYs, going on exercises, deploying. So, yeah, I mean, we're pretty busy when we're busy.
Well, that's the way it is, man. When it rains, it pours. Chase, I'm glad you brought up the whole changes to AFSOC, because AFSOC or Air Force Special Operations Command is going through a lot of changes that are not only impacting, special tactics, AC-130s, CV-22s, MC-130s and stuff like that, but also, I mean, you nailed it, dude. You guys are on the Dagger side of the house. You guys are getting, I say, and when I say impacted, it almost has a negative connotation to it, but I don't necessarily mean it to be a negative connotation. I'm just saying that, like, there are changes all going through AFSOC right now. And then the dust still hasn't settled. Like, it's still happening. And that's kind of normal, because changes are always happening, and you have to stay relevant and make sure that you're, ready for whatever's out there, because it's not always going to be an Afghanistan kind of situation. And I'll just leave it at that. I won't take this to a provocative podcast naming certain locations and countries and stuff like that. But those are things that we've got to be ready for, which is why AFSOC is kind of changing the way it is. And then I'm gonna bounce back to a question, and it doesn't really fall in line with what we're just talking about, but I've got notes here if you guys aren't tracking, just because you guys say good stuff and I'm like, ooh, I want to hit that. And then we go 2 or 3 things down and I got to come back to it. But, so once you're a Dagger, you don't necessarily remain a Dagger your entire career. So what are we looking at in terms of how long do I get to be a Dagger? And I understand that is based off of probably promotion and rank and stuff like that, but how long do I typically get to be a Dagger? And then what are the promotion rates look like for said Daggers? I'm going to throw that to either one of you guys, because I don't know who's got the more gouge on it.
The active duty side of things, right? So active duty and guard reserve have it completely different than each other. So on the active duty side of things, you're coded or guaranteed 3 years at a section at minimum. Sometimes you can go over that with like lack of manning, or PCSing to another location that has the Dagger section, so you can continue like going from a CONUS to OCONUS or vice versa. Or let's say I were to step laterally and go fill a seat with Raul and be an instructor, right? So there's that ability to move to the 371st to be an instructor, to the 352nd or 3rd to be an OCONUS Dagger situation, which they've got a completely different mission set, completely under the SOW instead of the Secret Forces Squadrons. So it's really like 3, maybe 8 years at the max. Somewhere in that is probably the window to expect as a SCI Dagger sitting in a billet. Now you can step away from the program if you choose to. Like if someone want to do it on being a tech school instructor or a pre-deployment instructor at Fort Bliss, right? They can step away from the program, and then when an opening opens for their respective rank, they can apply or put their name in the pot, right, to fill that billet later down the road. And like I think Lance brought it up on the last podcast, it's something that you might need to go through a recertification phase for, either in-house with whatever section you're filling the billet at, or if it's been a super long time and there's been a drastic amount of changes, you might even have to go back through qualification. I've never seen that personally. Raul, I don't think you've seen it either. So that's kind of you have? Okay. Mm-hmm. So he can talk more on that part. But so that's the active duty side of things. With the Guard and Reserve, once you're in a billet for a Dagger section, it's pretty much your billet to own until you choose to do something else with your career for a promotion statement or for promotion reasons. Or so if you want to sit in the billet and you want to Dagger it for, if I get out tomorrow and I go to the reserve section or guard section and I fill a Dagger billet at one of those 2 units, and I want to stay there until I hit my retirement mark, I can choose to do so. So they've got a pretty sweet gig set up over there. It's kind of like a hidden gem, essentially. But as for the second half of your question with promotion rates, when I first came into the section, I was a senior airman. I had just tested for staff. I was waiting for staff. It was literally 3 years ago, almost to the day. I was waiting for the results to drop, and myself and 4 or 5 other senior airmen all made staff that year. And some of them were already in the section, had done time in the section with deployments and TDY experiences, and other of us had just PCS'd in from an AMS hire. But there was a good chunk of us that made staff. And then following on years, like, we had 1 dude or 2 dudes make tech, or, so it's no different. It really depends on going back to your EPR and what kind of work you put in inside the program, outside the program, and invest in yourself, honestly, to get that promotion statement. Our EPRs are obviously really different than traditional security forces, and especially being attached to a security forces unit. We're not going to have the bullets or the sides of the EPR that say, like, did this many random vehicle inspections or stopped 4 domestics or stuff like that, right? So different types of EPRs, which is kind of wonky when it comes to the murder board for promotion rates. But at the same time, like, it's a pretty equal playing field, because there's still studs in security forces at the squadrons that aren't Daggers or Ravens or TRF guys that are doing great work for the squadron. So,
oh man, you're throwing out TRF too. Now people are going to be like, "Oh my God, what is that?"
They're studs. They do a great job up there.
Yeah. Oh no. It's just, there's so much good stuff that's out there. And I mean, dude, we could literally do a podcast every single day and just talk about just pick something new every single day, and we could just continue on. We wouldn't end.
Yeah, I think Trent brought up on the last podcast about having the CFM for security forces come on the podcast. Security forces is so broad. Like, we could, like you said, we could literally just go day by day by day.
Well, if you know his name, let me know and I'll ping him. The cool thing about being my rank is I can just reach out to anybody. Yeah. So, like, whatever. So I just need a name, because there's 40-something thousand of you. Yeah. So,
like you said, large career field, very large career field.
Yeah, very much. All right. Well, as we kind of wrap this up, guys know we like to kind of ping you guys for advice that you would give, good, bad advice, whatever it is that you would give to folks that want to come in and be Dagger. So, Raul, I will pass it off to you right now. What kind of advice do you have for anybody? And since nobody can come off the street and be a Dagger, for those that are active duty that happen to be watching, what advice would you give them?
I would just tell them to invest in themselves. A lot of people in our career field, they tend to, get comfortable in the position that they're in, and don't do that. Never get comfortable. At the end of the day, even if your job is to be at a gate and check IDs, your job is to, at its very basic core, is to keep bad people from coming onto base. So you should be at your deadliest, honestly. Always invest in yourself, always PT, do what you can. And blaze your own trail. There's a lot of negativity out there, and try to shut it out as best as you can, and be your own person. Do what you want to do, and blaze your own trail.
Man, you want to talk about the negativity that's out there. It's a shit show. Oh, how about you, Chase? What do you got?
I agree with Raul 100% on the invest in yourself. Pick up a book and read, learn something that isn't from just word of mouth from a friend or a supervisor. Like, there's so much experience in and outside of the military. Just like one of the books I'm reading right now is The Common Sense Way by P. Blabber. Just educate yourself, become better in that standpoint, and everything else will follow suit. So, additionally, it's your career. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're sitting at, BFE base, wherever in the world, and you want more, take advantage of whatever options that base has. And this is CE, this is fuels, this is security forces, this is medical. There's always other options to expand within your career field. So take that jump, get comfortable being uncomfortable. So, when I PCS to Cannon from Lackland, I went through ADM, which is Advanced Designated Marksman. And then I moved on to the EST program, the SWAT program for Lackland. And so I just continued looking for whatever was next. I never wanted to settle for. And I think anyone that wants to go Dagger or Raven or literally anything, you should be taking advantage of whatever programs that your respective base you're at now has to better, because it's only going to open your doors more so to programs like Dagger or, cross-training into ST or wherever you want to go. So invest in yourself and just don't settle. It's your career. So.
No, and I'm glad you said take advantage of the opportunities that are provided, because if you think that you're going to sit on the sideline and go, well, I'll just do it next year.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it next year. If you're waiting for the perfect time, there is no perfect time. You just got to do it. And that's just the reality of it. And that's true across whether it's, I don't know if you guys have kids, but you'll hear people saying, oh, we're waiting to have kids. It's like, if you're waiting until the right time, it'll never happen. So no, I'm glad you said that, but awesome, gents. Well, I really appreciate you guys joining us. You guys are doing great things for the Air Force, for your country, and for the Dagger community. I really appreciate it. And I hope that everybody that's out there is actually, you guys, Chase, you're running the Dagger Instagram page?
No, I've got friends of mine that are running
okay.
it. But I'll reach out to them and let them know, like, whatever whatever you guys need or want to hear, we can definitely press that button for them to promote more in whatever direction it is that you guys are, the people want to see. So.
Oh yeah. No, I just wanted to plug it. So, because I don't know it off the top of my head, but there is a Dagger Instagram out there. So if you're not tracking, check it out.
It's US
and definitely
_ AFSOC Dagger or Dagger AFSOC. What's one of the two? I get confused. So.
Yeah, I was going to try not to pull out my phone just to read it off, but since we're talking about it, I will do that. Let's see here. It is, it's USAF _ AFSOC Dagger. So go check them out. Ping them for questions, anything that you have, burning questions that you have that we weren't able to answer. Well, I wasn't able to answer anything. Raul and Chase were able to answer it. Check it out, and then we'll go from there. So appreciate you joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and then leave us a review. Tell us how poorly I'm doing as an interviewer. So, all right. Thanks for joining us, guys. Later.
Thank you.